So I was thinking about religion and philosophy and if they can talk together or are totally opposites. And that was time after the cartoon controversy, where I went from my youth being a very religious young man, seeking the knowledge and wisdom of the organized life in religion. And religion means to organize uh, the practices around the worship. Philosophy, on the other side, means that you think freely and you maybe think organized, but anyhow, you give yourself place and space to doubt and think about life in many ways. And so they seem like being opposites. And if you go into philosophy, you are out of religion, and if you are religious, you do not like philosophy. That's not totally true, and that's not reality in many ways, but that's how it can seem for us as seekers of knowledge and people who want to understand. And so I spent part time of my life in the beginning um, very much focused on religious knowledge and its arguments. Then, after the travel, especially to Greenland, but sometime before that, I started really enjoying the philosophical aspects that I had with me from my high school and education seminary of education, and later the university, because it's like two ways of life and thinking. And the question is what to do with religion and philosophy in life. And the way I found is that they actually can speak together, and there are a middle way in between them that I found in the Middle Age philosophers of the especially Islamic world that I know about. I'm sure there have been some in other places in the world that had this ability to combine it. The only I know about from the Eastern are the old Buddha and Confucius and Mencius and some of these great figures that lived there. And then we had also in the Christian world, you had a figure like Saint Augustine, who really managed to, he was a philosopher, and he was very much a non-believer and started like also reflecting on the same way. And later Thomas Aquinas, before him you had Avicenna and Averroes and Al-Ghazali in the Islamic world, and you had Al-Kindi and Al-Farabi. And so there were people who were deeply religious or seeking religion and seeking prayers and worship, and still having the space in themselves to doubt and to ask the questions. So it has been possible to live on both grounds and take it with you all the way up to today, until today. The trouble with our modern times are that we get the impression, especially when I was young, I got this impression that they were two opposites. People who teach religion hasn't the awareness of the importance of philosophy, and sometimes are afraid of it, and that's why they advise against it. And I have met many also teachers giving lectures and people who are giving learning in education and religious education. They will tell you, keep away from philosophy, you will go mad, or you will just get lost in many ways. And the only thing you will gain is that you will lose your faith, and you will lose your inner peace with God. And why do you want to do that? You already found the path and the way. Keep going on it and stay on it. And so they make people like scared of going into philosophy instead of applying it. Of course, not all. I've also met some modern scholars from the Levant, the place that I know best, who really try to apply this in many ways. You had that former Bosnian president, Ali Izzat Begovic, who were a philosopher, and wrote a famous book Between East and West, trying to build the bridge of ideas between how East and West have met and exchanged ideas and ways of life. And then I met also Al-Bouti, the Syrian scholar, who were actually bombed. He had a bomb under his chair when he was lecturing in Syria during the revolution in 2013. And he was very much a scholar who kept out of the way of the state, the Alawite rule, and some say it was his growing discontent with the way they handled the rebels that made them kill him, and some say it was the rebels who was discontent with his silence and not being on their part. And that's the trouble sometimes with clever people and philosophy. It's not easy to make that bold and one-sided, what can you say, view and action. And so I've met people with that kind of philosophy also in the Christian world, people who were philosophers. You had Søren Kierkegaard and Niels Grundtvig, whom I later came to know better and more, and I would like to speak about at one time. And so it's possible, actually. You had in Denmark also Schluck and Møllehave, of those I know about, who also had this approach, like philosophizing over religion and making arguments for life through religion. And so you had on the opposite sides also people who were just religious and just philosophers, like kept philosophy totally out of the way of religion, as if they weren't related, or that religion didn't have anything to say in that. But I was, of course, with my religious background, most interested in those who could combine both, because I like thinking, and I like thinking deep about things. That's the best thing that has worked in my life, my brains, and I wanted to activate it deeply. And so I went on a journey looking more into philosophy and some of the introductory books. I loved The World of Sophie by Jostein Gaarder, the Norwegian writer, or was he Swede? He wrote a beautiful and up to this day very famous and popular book where he made philosophy like accessible to many people, because the trouble with philosophy, as Wesley Cecil has pointed out many times, also recently in some of his podcasts and talks, and I like Wesley Cecil, he was also a gateway for me to get this introduction. I mention him in my book in 2014 and later in 2018, that he was a gateway to understand main ideas and topics that philosophers dwelt on. But then I had also to look into some of the books myself and to see. And some I spent more time on than others, and also like reading excerpts of different philosophers in some books I found in the libraries in Denmark. Other times I could like try to dwell on one philosopher made easy or made understandable by some author or writer. And I had this book about the humanistic sciences, and I had a book about philosophy that also tried to introduce philosophy over time and over the years. And then I also read into psychology, The Light of Lyceon, on how psychology evolved and had its roots back to the Greece. And so they all say it goes back to Plato and the way he thought about stuff in life, and the way he told us about Socrates, and then he had Aristotle to oppose him and to befriend him and be alongside that trip. And the Greek world is a big and wide one, and philosophers of all kind has been thinking about reality, and many of the modern philosophers tap back into that. And like look at different aspects of life and the social sphere that we are living in. So back to that question that about religion and philosophy, if they can go hand in hand, and if any people can be both, they can. There are people who loses faith because of philosophy, because they see that religion is just, if I can say it like in not so good way, is just a simplifying way of looking at life, making you just worship. It's like the sun worshippers that we laugh at today. And that's exactly what philosophy does to your mind. It takes you on a journey that makes you doubt even yourself and who you are and reality. And I remember the David Beckham famous quote about life, that it's an illusion and that it's actually just a reflection of our will and our brain, and that nothing of what we see really exists. It's a non-existing thing that is made up to look like it's very solid and very, very true. And the boundaries are conventional, and so that made I guess the extreme point of what philosophy can do to you. It can also make you doubt your God, because where is this God and how does this God work? Isn't it just all your feelings and your reflections and emotions in a moment of troublesome times? So that is one effect of philosophy, that it takes you away from your maybe former simple belief and way of life, where you just were content. Like the nature people in the old days were just content with worshipping nature as the power, and the god behind it was Sila or Gaia or Mother Earth or whoever was controlling these winds and seas and harvests and love and hatred and all that's surrounding us and affecting us. And that's the same with the newer religions. Some philosophy will tell you that it's just and some ethnographic studies based on philosophy will tell you that it's just an elaborated way of making sense of reality that has no meaning and no sense. You have to put the meaning and sense in it, and so you can go in a different direction than your old religion. And the effect of that will be that you lose that faith and that easygoing way of life. When I say easygoing, doesn't mean it's light. It's not like religion doesn't give you a burden. It has big burdens and sometimes many restrictions, and can be demanding of you every day to wake up and pray, or to sit and meditate, or to go to church and to give alms and to do voluntary work and to keep from doing bad things and keep your lusts under control and not let your brain and emotions run away with you, and all that we know about religion can be a big burden. So philosophy is just telling you, well, you burdened yourself, okay, and you found your meaning of life, but it's all not really true, because when we look at reality, you can see that your senses tells you otherwise. You've just built that meaning or accepted it as a culture surrounding you. Wow, that is something that really breaks your foundation. At the same time, if you reject it, you will just shake your head at philosophy and tell your students, keep away from that. That will only make you doubt your faith. And that's what I mean. It will make you doubt, and it will make you get out of the way of being that practicer of the belief in the God that you follow. And I have found that it has been easier for people with polytheistic views to understand and accept that type of philosophy than people from monotheistic views, and that's why an opposite movement has been found in history. I'm not able to document it right now, but I know it has been almost like that they went with arguments to make religion understandable, and to put proofs that religion actually is a way of life that is true and not just an illusion, and not a way of cheating your senses and yourself into a kind of meaning. It is the meaning, and it is the way to find the meaning and live in it. And they went very far with that in many ways, to give arguments from reason, from feelings, from senses, from what's beyond the senses, from mathematics, chemistry. Before chemistry, it was alchemy. And so they tried by showing that everything isn't dependent on itself, but dependent on something else, and that you are in this life also dependent. And so there must be a source to all this. That's logic for your brain. And your feelings tells you that there is something beyond it, and the look the look of life and death and how people go around also shows you that this is not an illusion, and it's not a vain thing to go and try to seek the deeper meaning. And so they went on that journey, and philosophy established itself as a way of argumenting for religion, not against it. But they also had inner discussions and quarrels about, of course, different topics related to religion, using philosophy as a tool. So they kept philosophy as a tool and not as a mean in itself. On the opposite side, later in history, we had people who started breaking free of that and saying that, well, neither philosophy or religion is actually the truth, but they are both kind of tools to the eternal meaning. And we get into mysticism, and that has been existing from before, but they became more loud at one point. And so you see both religion and philosophy as tools. You use them, and when you get there or past them, you don't need so much of them anymore. You will look back at yourself as that religious person and say, okay, it was a lot of practices, but actually I am there where I don't need to the constraints. I am constrained by my love and by my understanding, deep feeling for how life is, and it's like I can see through the gland of the third eye and God's light. I don't need it anymore, and I can understand how it's all so solid and still an illusion, and how it's all in God's hand and so small. There is this famous parable in at least the Muslim mysticism, that the earth in the spheres of the heavens surrounding it is just like a small ball in the hand of any one of you, and the spheres of heaven is in the hand of the angel, like a small ball with the earth in it and with the planet in it. It's just like a small ball of a slice circle or small ball in the hand of that angel. And so you can like get the feeling and the sense of the smallness of where we are. Looking back into philosophy, you can go back and say, well, the opposite road has also been taken, to look into the minest and what can you say, smallest element they could find at that time. They called it the atom, and they called it like the brick of life, and that's what they could see. That was the smallest element of life. And now with technology and the scope of looking into these small elements, they can see even minor elements. They went in to see and understand the electrons and neutrons, and later the quarks. And I don't know, right now they have something new at hand, even smaller and more strange. And so you can see on both ends we are like bound on two journeys: the journey of what's bigger than us and what's smaller than us, and then there is what's inside us and what's outside us, and how we all connect all these things. And we live in this circle of life, going by, trying to see, and then suddenly time runs out and we are not here anymore. So how do we define time and understand it? And that's what philosophers started doing very deeply also in the 18th, 19th century, when they started really combining their evolution in science and breaking down the religious authority. I think it was because they wanted to break free and breathe in a free way. Sometimes the trouble with people with religion, they become so organized and so powerful that they can monopolize everything. And they want people not only to keep away from philosophy, but from philosophizing as well, from trying any kind of thoughts or ideas in public. They just want to say, you're wasting your time, we have the truth, don't go there. You're throwing yourself in hell, let's save you from that. And so I think the intention of religious organizations in the Middle Ages and afterwards, up to the modern ages, I think it has been to protect people and help them away from not falling into that deep pit of lostness and losing any kind of shelter and and what can you say, traditions that helps you uphold your life in a good manner, all connected, of course, with worship of God and friendship with people around you, and practicing the issues that makes your soul and life better. That's why religion still has an impact in people's life even today, and even stronger coming back. That's because it calls out something in humans. It has also a logical side of it, an effect. Even though some people say logical side of religion, yes, it does. It seems on the surface as mere superstition, but its ability to organize an argument has brought it back, and brought it strongly back after 150 years of those who want to put it in the total darkness and leave it out of life and society and destroy it completely through universities and positivic sciences and killing God and all that followed. And just a small pit stop at Nietzsche and killing God. I saw a documentary with an expert on Nietzsche, and a British man, I think he's still out there on YouTube, that's some years ago, and he said that this is a misunderstood concept. Nietzsche was trying to show the extreme limit of what could happen to humans and values if we kill God, and we have killed the God in the Christian society by killing Christ. And well, they believe it's an incarnation of God or part of him, or whatever they see that is true there. It's just, it's a kind of killing God, and if you kill him again now by killing the institutions and letting away the scriptures and not listening or adhering to any of that, then man is on his own. You would better be a Superman to go on in life like that, because otherwise you are in a strange place, and you will never be able to uphold the skies and the heavens and earth. It's my like explanation of this, but it's like as if he was saying that, and that was an eye-opener for me to understand that maybe this guy is just trying to dramatize that really we are on our own if we want to be without any God of any kind. And so we are back to the poles between philosophy and religion, and how they sometimes work together. And we got these, in my eyes, very beautiful times of religious philosophers digging into many topics: language, mathematics, human relations, the way people think, the realm of ideas, and trying to combine it with life in religion, and with religion, and organized by religion. And then we got times where it was only the philosophers, and they went all the way out to the edges, where they said, listen, we're gonna go anywhere we want in our thoughts and work and writings. We are not gonna be bound by conventions of religion and religious institutions and the people behind them, who are actually many times just saying God because they want power, and they want to use God as a tool to empower themselves and make themselves above people. They could see through some of that, and they could see the hypocrisy in the way they practice. They want people to do things they don't do themselves or cannot uphold in real life when it comes to it. And they make themselves on the surface very, very good and worshipping, but they judge people using that tool of religion in a way that they wouldn't even judge themselves. And so we had these philosophers who says this is not going to hold, and people with strong minds will follow and will go away and will try to seek new ways of looking into life as a whole, using the sciences available at that time. And so up to Descartes, I guess, maybe a little later with Francis Bacon, as they say, it was maybe there it all shifted, the time of enlightenment with Voltaire and whoever was in that circle, and people in that time who tried, philosophers at that time, who tried to break free and attack religion and say this is not going to hold anymore. Philosophy is a discipline of itself, and it should just have the unlimited way of being used because maybe we can get to some sort of truth of where we are. And now the sciences is helping. We have more and more available to us, and we can get out into space, and we can dig down into the seas, and we are gathering so much information and making so much new technology that I think any philosopher today, if Voltaire lived today, he would be so enthralled that now we're getting close to breakthrough. And we had this guy Hawkins, who thought he had seen beyond the universe and could tell people that there is no God. I have seen it all, and there is nothing. And there is only us and the physical processes. And that's a sad thing to say, but that's the truth. And he's following Sartre and the other philosophers from existentialism in that opinion, because they want to say maybe it's a good and satisfying thing to say that when you wake up and you sleep and everything is surrounding you seems so strange and untouchable and different to understand, difficult to understand, that you tell yourself there's a God behind it. And then that makes you feel more safe, more at home, not so lost and lonely. But truly, you are just a lost little speck in the universe. Maybe the God or the gods or whatever is out there is not even aware of your existence. You are only the one aware of this type of life. And because it seems so untouchable, like you don't know how the sky brings the rain, how the rain affects the earth, and how the earth is spinning, and how things are running. Truly, you can maybe understand how they run, but you cannot control them and move them. When you get to do that, then it doesn't become a mystery anymore. It's like people who worship the sun. They saw that was the God. When she was angry, she got the moon in front of her, and she disappeared. They didn't know it was the moon. They just thought it was because she needed a sacrifice, or she didn't want to be there anymore, or because she wanted to show them that if she disappears, there will be no more life. People were satisfied with that kind of thinking in the old days. In some tribes anyway, not all the people, because I must talk about the Jewish religion and the Israeli religion with all due respect. I'm not a scholar, and I'm not able to dig deep into these issues, and I hope people with much more knowledge can forgive my way of doing this. But this is just how I went about thinking about things in a very, very common manner that is common to everyone, not using very special words and tools and trying to put things into frames and along a big and thick dictionary of what that mean, and why is not say this about that, and the different schools. You cannot use this philosophical word that belongs to this school in that school, and you have to organize everything in logical structures, hypotheses, and blah blah blah. I'm not doing all that, because my idea is to try to find out who I am and where I belong, and not just digging into some organized new kind of religion without calling it religion. And that's what the modern philosophy is about, and that's why I like the criticism that's come out about it from different sources, that this has gone too far, and the philosophy is not the philosophy anymore. And so back to the topic, the old days, they had this sun notion, and then they found out, well, the sun much later found out that it was just a ball of fire spinning in the universe like we are. And okay, oh well, that wasn't the God anyway. And so, except of Abraham, whom they tell the story about, had already this notion very early on, and said to his people, this is not a God. I worship the one who created this, and that's the God we cannot see or hear, but he's there present. And that's the monotheism I'm trying to look into later, and had been attached to in the beginning. But leaving that aside for some time, I went looking like, okay, so the philosophers are telling us with the tools of science and knowledge, we can understand life without the need of this superstitious ways of being afraid of everything, and going to temples and praying and trying to satisfy the God so he doesn't get angry and turn it all against us. We have just to control it, and the more we can control it and see it and look into it, the magic will disappear, and we will understand, oh, Okay, now we know how it works. Now we can put skies, we can put the clouds in the skies whenever we want. We can shelter ourselves from the sun if we want, and we can make the moon appear through mirrors, even though it's on the other side of the earth. And so we can do a lot of things maybe in the future because of the sciences we are building in and with and surrounding Earth and looking out into space. Maybe we will be doing that, and maybe the God, or if people believe in many gods, they won't let us, as they say. Whenever humans try to become too godly and too strong, they get destroyed, and they get put back into the simple stage of drawing, carving into stones, because that's the only tools they will have left after they evolve in a big technology and it all breaks down. The only way to communicate from that point on is taking something and carving it into the stone, and then nobody exists anymore, and new generations come and they see, oh, they lived very primitive, and they may be missing half the story, and then it all starts over. That's also a kind of theory about how things keeps going for us humans. So maybe we wouldn't be allowed to do that, and that's maybe the proof of there is some higher power out there, whether this power is visible or not. But philosophy is trying to break the limits back in the 1900s and say no more of this religious restrictions, and we have to follow strict rules of looking into nature. That's what Darwin went about. Say, well, okay, maybe the Bible is telling me something, but I can see in nature that things works in a different way, and I have to reflect it and talk about it and maybe have my opinion on it. And from there, the idea of something that evolves became the religion of the time we are in, and maybe it was a big breakthrough, and maybe it's a big hypothesis, and maybe it's a big mistake. And so today, the religion is fighting that back, and the people who have talked about intelligent design and the creation of man and woman has been finding arguments, and even biologists and people who look into these sciences have been writing books against the evolution theory, but because the mainstream universities and media has already tapped into that kind of philosophy or religion and made it the mainstream, it's difficult to turn against it. In my opinion, whatever and whoever can come with an argument against something makes it a theory and an hypothesis and not a truth. So whatever I think about my religion or my philosophy and how it works, if somebody can come with eligible arguments and with upstanding arguments that can make sense in the logic and in the sense of man, that means that we can doubt the other idea, even though we maybe don't believe the new idea, but then we can doubt it because it means there is something that's opposing it, and that opposing is like what makes the other view possible. That's my sense of philosophy, as it should be. It should always be the seeker, as Socrates really tried to teach people. Always be the seeker. And the time you stop seeking and you think you found the truth, that's where you have lost it. Because maybe it's all built to be like that. And that's why even religious people who became very, very, very hardcore religious, they always said, like I know 2 or 3 from the Islamic world at that time who said things like that. That the time I dig into knowledge, it's like I'm wetting my feet at the shore of a big sea, and there is so much more. And whenever I think I understand something, I realize how much I have missed so much else. And the others have an opinion that I find wrong, but my opinions are true. But many times I see my opinions to be true with the possibility of the other being right and I am wrong. And so they had these notions all the way back from the Greeks, and I'm sure you can find similar quotes in Judaism and Christianity as well. I just can't seem to recognize some of this right now, but It is there. And every human who have been tried to satisfy himself with the religion finds himself digging deeper into its realms and understanding how big a sea it is. And not only religion, but the spirits behind it. And that's why some people become mystics, as they call them. Why do they call them mystics? There's nothing mysterious about it. They're just dwelling on the mystery of life and digging deeper in how the soul can evolve and become something more than just a practice of religion, and understand that maybe it works, yeah, as they say, God works in a mysterious way. That's why maybe they call them mystics. And so even in the religious spheres, you find these spiritual philosophers who open their hearts to look deeper into those philosophies of religion and the sides of practices, and how to dwell on God's existence and your own existence in ways that's maybe difficult to explain. It's like you get an ecstasy or a feeling or a kind of a moment where you are out of your body, or you see the light, or you can feel in contact with something higher and bigger, and then you lose it or you fall out of it and you're back, and you can see the others still practicing and worshiping, but you have been somewhere, or you have been elevated to a small level of spiritual enlightenment, or maybe you start understanding just one thing about God that was a kind of inspiration you got, how to explain that without being mad or without being doubted. And that's the trouble of organized religion. It makes things sometimes too restricted, because that's the safest thing. It's like having the fields you can open up for several ways of letting the corn and the water run, but you stop it all, and you make a circle, not a circle, but you make a rectangle around it, and you just put it in a box, and that's the safest thing, and you know what you get every time. And I understand that view, but that's not satisfying, and that's not enough. And so when the philosophers finally broke through and up through the Middle Ages, and they call them the Enlightenment, the time of enlightenment. Before that, we had several other kind of breakthroughs through the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance period in Europe. In Asia, that has been something they have dwelled on much earlier. And in the Middle East, in the Golden Ages, in the 1300s, there has been these schools that went all the way to doubt even if God's word actually is the word of God, or if it was a created word of God. So they had all kind of topics already early on in the 9th and up to the 1200s. And then came the period of the Renaissance that struck Europe with a fire in the 1500s, and that's where it's also started. The people who want to think more freely, but they still hid their books and hid their names, because the organized religio people were not gonna be happy, and they started the Inquisitions. And we have the book, The War of the what is it called? Not the War of the Roses, but that guy who went to that monastery, that famous book of that Latin American guy. Well, my memory isn't helping right now. Anyhow, In the Name of the Rose, yes, of course. And then we have all this also working out later, where the philosophers really break the religious boundaries and want to think free of religious boundaries. And now today we have philosophy as the established domination. Everyone who is clever enough and respects himself enough, he go to philosophy and not to religion. And people who study theology is also all about showing the bright and intelligent side of it all, digging into logical structures and understanding the theories behind it and the words and like being an intellectual person on God. Theology is not only today the digging into the mysteries of the God's nature and how it is, how it is understood and how it is reflected in books and early works and the Holy Scriptures. It's also like showing you're an intellectual who can doubt and who cannot, who can think about what to accept or not. So today, religion has been pushed much back. The idea of both evolution and that everything is relative and nothing can be upheld as the one truth, and maybe God is dead and doesn't really exist, and he didn't exist from the beginning. That was not even the God. Can we even trust that this character called Christ have lived? I've heard that from my teacher and from many others, and there have been written books about it, and some people want to doubt everything to the total end. And as some Muslim scholars had said, there is a big wisdom in, that's from the old days. They have said that there's a big wisdom in God never revealing himself to humans because he knows them, and he know they would, if they get any power, just a slightly ability to harm the God, they will do it. And that's how we are and who we are. We are wanting to be the gods instead of the God, or the gods instead of the gods, whatever you believe. I believe in the one God. So I think that's why God, said to Moses, "Look at the mountain, and if it stands still when I finished glaring at it, glancing at it, then maybe you can see me." And then when the mountain fell into rubbles, Moses was scared and bowed down with his friends and was so shaky, and he knew that he couldn't. I know it's a mythological story for those who does not believe, but the idea of it, even if you are a philosophizing person who does not believe in religion, the idea of it is that if we humans get hold on God, we will kill him. And that's maybe the deep philosophy and Christian aspect of the one God, that they're showing you this in a symbolic way, that whoever and whatever God is, we want to try to evolve into the new gods and take over. That's why we're using sciences today, and we don't want the organized religion. But then we can see we are hitting some many dead ends in philosophy as well. We can see the universe around us is in many ways expanding. That's very, very strange, as they have said, and it can be shrinking at some other points. And the stars has already died and fled many years ago. So what is it we are seeing? How does time work, and how far away are these things from us? So we are way, way, way away from even reaching in to the realm of God. And then we resign. What can you say? We go into a resignation mode and say, okay, we have to accept it. And it made even Albert Einstein say, I believe in the God of Spinoza. And some says that other philosophers other scientists had the same experience in the end, and some of them has turned into some religious people, or they took back some of the religious arguments in their life, or they just found themselves realizing the wonders and miracles of the small things they are looking into, and understanding that this is an unbelievable, deep and complicated thing that's surrounding us. And that's what brings people back to religion again, saying that, okay, maybe there is a meaning with this organization and worship, and the mystery of the God's power is not gone. It's here, and it will be revived. And that's the promise of God anyhow. As a believer, I'm saying that he says whenever people try to cover the light of God, it will shine through, and he will make it shine through, and nothing can really go against that. But that's the struggle sometimes between religion, that can be a source of darkness, unfortunately, and has been, and all these hypocritic and false people leading the religious institutions and ways of life, constraining people, taking their money, sitting on power, aligning themselves with tyrants and whatever. They are not really reflecting God, they're just reflecting their lack of ability to be something, and then they can find it in saying God's words, and that's what makes them bigger and stronger. And I tried to get out of that as a young man, because I found out that, okay, I am in a status because I am I'm reflecting God's word and work. I don't want that. I want to stand off on my own. And if I'm standing on my own, how will people look at me? Well, I lost my value and I lost my place. And I'm not wanting to get it back in false ways, because I found myself, on the other hand, the small lost creature in the universe. And that's why I love the aspects of Camus and his way of thinking, or the Little Prince, and the way it is that we are this just small flower that finds the snake and just lay in the dust and die in the end, and we are gone. And that's existence for us. And then you have to make sense in that. The dust speck in the wind, as Calvin and Hobbes says, he looks at the stars and screams, "I am important," and then he looks up and nothing returns back his call, and the stars are still up there, the same place, same thing. And then he said the dust speck, and that's a very, very beautiful picture I have had on my wall for many years, and maybe I will put it back again. It's really showing our size and who we are, and everything we're trying to accomplish is like the small house of an ant that some giant comes later and fixing the road or his garden or the place where the ants lives goes about and destroy it and step upon it. And all this realization of the world of the ants, their own sense of maybe being and their own work and how they work is gone. And maybe what seems a second for that giant has been months for this ant working on this small corn of sand and building its house and bringing food and organizing and talking together. It's all lost in a second. And why not see the picture as a mirror? Maybe everything we uphold and this talk and everything we're doing is nothing. We are not, the bigger realm of life is not even aware of this very, very small impulse we are sending out, and then in 1 second something comes and we are all destroyed. And that's what makes people fall into the acceptance of meaningless. That doesn't mean they go about killing themselves, but it's like, stop putting that over layer of meaning into things that doesn't exist. And if there is a God, maybe this God is not even aware of you. And there we got the Gnostics in between religion and philosophy and mysticism, because they understand philosophy, and they can dig into with the mystics, and they can look at religion, and they can say some of these Gnostic what can you say ways I've read about. They say, well, maybe this is a creation of God. We accept that, and we have a deeper sense and meaning, and we can go with our spiritual journey, looking into ourselves and the realm of life and the universe. But we are also lost and left behind, and we can philosophize all we want. We are limited. We cannot get beyond the limits that has been given to us. And so they say God has abandoned this life and left something in it we can find meaningful. And that's also the opposite idea or theory, but maybe not supported by anything. It's just maybe a combination of realizing that both philosophy, religion, and our very simple sense tells us that maybe what we want it to be is not how it is. And that's where many people with religious arguments, they go wrong. They would like to tell you, would you prefer a world where there is no God and you are just a small speck, or would you prefer to be an important person who goes into heaven? Well, of course I wanna be that important person going into heaven, but that doesn't make it real. That doesn't make it true. There is nothing outside you that can really relate to that other than the scripture, and that scripture is something that has been discussed, and people maybe can reject it or say, well, it doesn't uphold the whole truth, or it's false, or it's just stories that contradict each other, and so on. And so maybe there is something about this that in religion, we try to satisfy ourselves with the idea and notion that we are loved and we are chosen and we are the people that God like and put us on this beautiful earth that we should make it grow. And when you look at the earth from the perspective of the philosophers, you see something else entirely. They see the destruction and the killing and the suffering and this harsh nature that we have been put in, and the lack of tools. We don't have enough tools to sustain ourselves, and people have been dying of what can you say, famine and lack of nourishing sources. And if we have plenty of that, we will be dying of nukes or something else. They look at the world and see it maybe more real and see, okay, if that's God great earth, well, what's going on in it? And then the religious people strikes back and say, well, it was meant to be like that, but we destroyed it because we were giving the free will. So you are using your mind and brains in a very wrong way. You're using the free will to say that that we live here and life is like this without a meaning. But that's not what God wanted. He wanted us with the guidance to be the governors and the people who are free to build it up to become beautiful. And He gave us the tools and the blessings. But when we started misusing it, He took it away from us. And that's the story of the Israelites. They know that, and they look back into the books and say, well, we had much bigger grace than we have today, and God has abandoned us and doesn't want us, so we have to go back. And that's why they get all these prophets. Some they kill, and some they argue against, and some they accept, and some they don't want to listen to and distort, as they say in the Old Testament. And that's many stories there about these people saying, hey, you went far away from God, go back so you can get the blessings. And God has chosen you to always uphold the light of Him and His name in this earth, because people will forget it otherwise. And you are the chosen people to do that. But when you go astray, He gets upset with you, and then He will take the blessings away. So they say back on the philosophers that there is a meaning, and this meaning will uphold us, but we have lost, and we cannot go back to it by the ways you are thinking. And the philosophers will just sit back at these French cafes and say to these religious people in the churches, monasteries, and mosques, and wherever they are studying, saying, you people are totally misguided. Look truly into earth and into yourselves. And we are back to the same argument and discussion about using religion for power. And so, I went on and on in this because that's the thoughts working in my mind after reading in different issues. I'm not reading just to reflect philosophy or to talk about what religion says. Why should I do that? Because thousands of people have been doing that all the time. They just sit and tell you what this philosopher says and what this text tells, and explain it here, explain it there, make sense out of some words people are putting together. For me, it's like, okay, let me understand this and that, many elements, and see what kind of meta meaning does it give. And that's what I've been doing, giving it kind of meta layer of understanding how this flows and how it affects us in life. And so it's all for me about this overbuilding of seeing things from a bit afar and from a bit high above, like flying a little bit as an eagle in the sky, or as a kind of observer, and seeing what's going on down there. And I'm down here as well, very much down here. I am so close to Earth that I can't see the limit of the horizon. But it's, well, what can you say? It's just an attempt to understand myself and my thoughts, that I went from religion to philosophy, and then from philosophy to try to find some kind of connection. And I found it in the religious philosophers, who give way lot of space to doubt, and will support any person who doubts himself and life and meaning, and maybe get lost in that, and say it's okay to get lost, because by getting lost, that's the Eastern philosophy, by the way. By getting lost, you suddenly understand you found something. You will find it when you get lost, and that's a beautiful thing. That's a hidden mystery, and that's the way of the mystics. at the same time, you cannot just get lost all the time. People cannot just go get lost. We need to uphold the society. So how do we do that? Right now, it's the anti-religious theory and way of life that's working for people, because they find themselves, oh, we are so scientific. We are anti-religious and superstitious. I don't believe in anything. This has become a fluxel for people who want to show they are clever while sitting at the bar, sipping at the third or fourth beer, and going out to pee it out on the other side. Oh, no, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything. And that's the way to show that they are well above things. And on the other side, you have the religious people who shake their heads and say, oh, these people doesn't believe in God. That's, oh, how big darkness. That's an obvious thing. God is there always. And they start like barking at people and showing they are better. And you can feel it sometimes in their psyche that they are just putting themselves a bit above the world and everyone else, because they are the good practices of the right religion. And they are doing things right according to God's will. And you find it in all religions, man. This kind of arrogance and this kind of self-upholding way of looking at others and seeing them as not good enough because, well, they don't dwell onto the text and they are not taking God's grace seriously. And so we are in this fight in between these two ideas, and many people just don't want to listen to any of that and go on, try to live their life. And that's what this guy in Voltaire, he finally found out when he went on this journey on philosophy and meeting this and that and meeting trouble on the way. He came back to his master and teacher, and Zadig, what he was called, and he went back and he just his teacher, he told his teacher what happened and what he's thinking and the doubts and all of that. Teacher was listening and said, okay, listen, that was a beautiful journey. Let's go out and maintain our garden. And the story ends there, and that's because maintaining the garden is the way out of all this. And this is the same way out for me, to just focus on the daily life and focus on what can make the earth grow, or what I can do to nourish life around me. And that's the meaning of nourishing the garden. Let's go out and take care of the garden. Just stay close to nature and do what you are supposed to do. And that's the best way of being both a religious and a philosophizing man. Well, it's a beautiful journey on the other side. It's like it gives me and many other people pleasure and ecstasy, dwelling on these thoughts and comparing them, but we can also get lost into them, and that's the problem. Philosophy doesn't offer you, and humanism, unfortunately, they doesn't offer you a way of having a kind of rituality. And then we go find it in the Dionysic, Dionysus, no, what is he called? Dionysus, the old god of lust, or Bacchus in the Roman Empire. It's like we go and find it in pleasures and hedony. That's what I'm trying to say. That people from the side who reject religion find it in hedony, and the others, they find it in some kind of sadistic manner of suppressing people and separating good and evil, and making people suffer for their disbelief or doubts and whatever, and that's a kind of revealing all this inner fear and insecurity that we are all living with. That's why I like the existential philosophers, because they say, let's strip everything down. And maybe I have to talk about those who affected me from these existential philosophers, maybe through the lenses of Søren Kierkegaard and that guy with the book The Godly Laughter, the Swedish psychologist whom I know I have here somewhere. He's where are you? Yeah, that's one of my favorite books as well, because it's also like put things into a different perspective. Yeah, he's called Claes Jensen, The Godly Laughter. That's an existential introduction, and later I liked Irvin Yalom and his way of looking at therapy and psychology, and poor guy, he's trying to use everything as a tool, both philosophy and God, and it's never gonna work. Because to get healed, you have to even believe in the doubt or believe in the belief. You have to believe that there is a God, and you give yourself that meaning truly from your heart, not just a tool to get by. Or else you put your doubt in everything and say, I cannot know, and it's meaningless, and I have to be content in that meaninglessness and find the courage to live in it. That's the message of Sartre and Camus, as I understand it, that they say, okay, we are there where we have realized it's meaningless, and religion is superstition and not really giving us answers. And it has fallen. The leaves of religion has fallen. People are not intrigued by it anymore. In their time, they were saying that, and people can see through it, and that it was like the old sun for these old nature people of nature. Later on, none of us will look at the sun today and see it other than this ball of fire it is. Of course, upholding life and nature, but we do not worship it because it's just a dead ball, or a ball, what can you say? It's a planet, a star running around up there. And so they say the religion has faltered, and people can see through it, so it will not be upholding the meaning. So let's accept meaningless, and accept that void. And what do they call it? They call it existential void or emptiness, something like that. I can't remember the word right now. And so let's find the meaning in that and accept it as humans. Let's be brave, embrace it with hope, with living the moment, and not knowing what's gonna be, and maybe we'll just disappear. We are just a fleck, dust speck in the universe. And so I hope I have relayed in my mind, from my mind, and to myself here, what I've been thinking for all these years and how I could shift views between the two. Many people can't do that because they go just once, and they can't leave, and they stay at one side because that's the easiest thing. Even people who are philosophizing at universities and looking into stuff, they have just pushed one side away. People who go into religious studies, oh no, we're not gonna look deep into that philosophy. And people who are upholding philosophy as an art and as a way of studying things, they do not really look into religion other than to say, oh, look how superstitious it is, look how bad, look how they read the scripture as if it was something holy and true. What is this nonsense? Philosophy is about using the words and the brain to get through to a physical reality that does not involve metaphysics, and metaphysics is just something beyond the realm that is not true, and it's applying positivistic science to know, and we can only know by our senses and what they show us, and they sit there in their high sky tower and look down at people and tell me how many people have really gained anything by philosophers. I know many people who try to open a YouTube video and listening to some of these and or maybe an audiobook, and they get lost from the first 2 pages if they reach there at any time. And the same goes for the big names in philosophy. Nietzsche, let's read Nietzsche, and you open Nietzsche and it doesn't give you any value. It's like a lot of anecdotes and so on. I love Nietzsche and I read most of his books, but I'm talking on behalf of the ordinary man. And so religion is more tempting. It's more simple. There are practices. There are this message of hope. We all live between life and death, and we have marriage and kids, and maybe we need money and we need to sustain our lives. We have sorrow and happiness and joy, and religion can tap into this, and that's what we need. And so religion is back and will be back and will be very strongly back. Just wait and see. The time will show, because it's such a strong power and it has its own logic. And that's why we need the religious philosophers, not the philosophers who are on that pole side. And we do not need the religious people who shut off philosophy as mere rumblings. and bad thought, but it is most of the time also that it's a lot of nonsense to make sense of one word. And now if you want to quote a philosopher, let's quote Heidegger on time and being, okay, and you find something very beautiful he said about the non-being in the being and something like that. Oh, wow, 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 wow. And it took him 1,000 pages to reach that small word, and a lot of rumblings about definitions and how he understands that definition and which word it is and it's not, and how the others said about this. And now finally he comes to that. Okay, that's a long way to go for many ordinary people, and it's not life-giving. He's not sharing them their joys. He's not there to be there when they get the loss of the close ones and something in life takes them away. That's what gives meaning to life. It's what we are facing every day. We need to work. We need to get food and safety and security. We need to avoid wars or go into wars, depending on where you stand. And we need to have somebody to tell us that it's not all lost. There is hope. And when you lose your loved ones, you want to understand why, and why does that hit me and not the others? And why do we all get hit by that? And this philosopher rumbling about time and being, he's not going to help, sorry to say. I like some part of Heidegger. I read some excerpts and I tried to, like, what can you say, put it into a meaningful way in my book on pedagogy, but it's not gonna help the ordinary man. Religion, on the other side, will be a lot more helpful. Oh, look at the Christ. He was the biggest sacrifice. Suffering is the way of life, and you see, if even God himself has given his son to that, what do you expect? Go holding on to hope and God's mercy, and there is a beauty and joy awaiting you on the other side. Okay, yeah, why not? That could be true. God help me. Yeah, we find ourselves saying that, and maybe it's a deep truth that God is within us, and as these very atheistic philosophers lately have been saying the last 50 years, Hitchens Hitchens, Hawkins, and some other name like that. Dawkins, Hitchens, Hawkins, and Dawkins, I've read and listened to some of them. Very respectful people, and I think they are full of energy and they're willing to life. But they are trying to make an argument that what they call the God gene, that it's just a kind of gene that went wrong in us, instead of seeing the powerfulness of ourselves and the godly side of it. We are giving ourselves up to a false gods out there, or somebody behind the curtain controlling and leading our life. And so, okay, all right, maybe that's it. And so why do I lose my son and daughter and to war? Why did my mother die? Why do I get ill? What's happening in my life? Why is there scarce of means? What's going on? Tell me, explain. What will happen to me after I die? Was that all? Did I just have a miserable life? Why? Who's chosen that? Why did I come out on the wrong side? Well, if I just have a miserable life, and you're telling me that it's all a coincidence, okay, let the coincidence be that I will take the life of the rich man from him. Or shouldn't I do that? Why not? Let me kill his son, or let me take his money, or let me attack his bank and rob his jewelry. Let me do these things that they don't like, these people who have fallen out on the good side of life, because it's all a coincidence. I'm just a dust speck. What the heck? I am losing everything anyway. There is no God, there is no reward, there is no nothing to help me out. Okay, let me listen to your voice and say the God gene has gone mad. Well, let me show you madness. Will that be a way of life? So why do people not do that? Because there is something upholding them, a kind of value they see in accepting their situation and their life. But if they should listen to this kind of philosophy to its extent, they will act differently. And the same goes for people on the religious side. If they listen to the philosophy to the non-philosophy of doubt in religion, they will become not only fanatics, they will become very dark-hearted, persecutors of others. That's what happened in history. And now the opposite is happening. These non-religious people are have been persecuting religious folks, and the tide is just shifting slowly. So, from my opinion, we need both, and we need the religious philosopher, the wise man, to lead us through. Not as a man, can be a woman, and I miss the woman in this as well. But a board of religious philosophers who show us the way and show us both spirituality and the ability to doubt that we have in us. Wow, that became a very long talk. I didn't even know I will end here when I started. I thought it would be like a 10-15 minutes reflection, and I'm glad I can tap this out of my mind as I see it and look at it. And again, I like putting it out there because I hope somebody will listen to it, not because I don't like that, but I'm not sure anybody will, and maybe just a few, and nobody will maybe get it, will reach this end. And if someone does, well, thank you very much. You've been very, very patient, and you're really trying to find something out there that can help you through. And I like that. I like opening people's mind to how I think, and maybe they can share that with me or oppose it in many ways. And we are all in the same travel together. We are on this moving earth with a big speed, going to a kind of a destination. So we are on this starship called Earth, and we are small dust specks at the same time, but with a feeling of big importance, huh? We really feel we are important, and we feel satisfied by our importance. So it's kind of a funny thing that we have this contradictory, double-sided way of looking at ourselves. Even when we reflect on who we are, we see that we are both things. The non-mattering talk I'm giving here that doesn't apply to anything, or maybe doesn't help anyone, nobody will listen to. And at the same time being that, that important guy who has given a talk about his way of thinking and the cleverness of it, huh? And hoping that 1,000 people will tap into it, and all to what destination? We are on a spaceship, and maybe war is lurking on the horizon. If not war, then a transition of life into a new over corporate governing societies. And yeah, we may, I don't know what will happen. Something is changing, and here we are between it. And so religion and philosophy in my lifetime after the Khartoum crisis was a kind of exploration, and still is. I haven't stopped, and I want to keep digging as much as I can, or looking at people and life as much as I can until the last moment. And I found my belief and my satisfaction, and I'm glad for that. But that doesn't mean that others find the same or get to the same result. Have a very fine and good day. The sun is up already now, and I'm not going to worship it, but I'm thankful that we have it, because that's what makes us warm and gives us life as we know it. And then we need some rain from time to time, doesn't we? And so we hope it comes. And with the sun and rain, well, we can grow things, and we can find something to eat, and that's what I need to have some breakfast. Have a good day.